let me ask you this. So why does he have a house and you don't? Is there a pay discrepancy? Does he
No,
get
we don't
paid
need to talk
more?
about that.
Yeah,
We don't need
yeah,
to talk about
yeah.
it. Moving on. One live. Thank you for joining us, Nitro. It was fantastic having you on the show today. All right, we now welcome on a very, very, very special guest. I'm a big fan of you, by the way. It is Dan Clark. It is Nitro. Nitro from American Gladiators, the original American Gladiators, maybe one of the best television shows ever created. I used to sit and watch this with my grandparents for hours on end. Like, it was appointment television. I loved this show. You were a superstar on it. Let's start there. The name Nitro kicks ass. There's no other way to describe it. You have a kick-ass name. How did you come up with the name Nitro?
Well, first, let me say thank you for, being a fan for all these years and keeping the American Gladiators alive, because it certainly found a place in pop culture. When I was doing the show, I was just a guy who was 23 years old, who got cut from a football team, who was looking for a way to make a living. I never thought, putting on those tighty whities, that I would ever, change the face of TV, usher in a new era of reality TV, and become this Captain Kirk, pop culture icon, for your generation. So I'm really appreciative to, the whole team there for having me on. And Nitro. So I wasn't named Nitro in the beginning. We had this first audition in this park, like in Van Nuys at that time, no less. That's like being on 6 Mile in Detroit. It's not a good neighborhood. And they said, we're looking for actors who are good in front of the camera, and I was like, wasn't much of an actor, or athletes are good in front of the camera. I was a good athlete. I felt like I had a certain something, I think like we all do. That's why you're in this media. You think you got something, a je ne sais quoi. So when I went on this audition at this park, they had these people who were actors. They had no right to be there as an athlete. I remember specifically, like, one guy was doing sit-ups the old way, where a guy was sitting on his feet, and each time he'd come up, the guy would give him a bite of a sandwich. I'm like, what the hell is this guy doing here? So I almost left. Then, a girl grabbed me and said, hey, we want you to stay, because there were so many people there trying out, but nobody looked like an athlete. And I needed to make money to support my 2-year-old son, Tyler. So I went through the drills like she asked me to. It's pretty easy, just, cones and regular football drills. And then she said, we want you to go on camera, excuse me, and we want you to pick one of these 3 characters, and we want you to answer these questions in character. So the first one was Gemini, loud, explosive, kick your ass, and then say, can we eat quiche? The second was Malibu, bro, the wave, surfer guy, all that. The third one was Evander. Loud, explosive, cocky, arrogant. So the original name for this character that, it was Evander. So after all these different auditions, which was, the last audition story, I mean, crazy story. I knock a guy out, I think they're going to fire me, but we can talk about more of that if you want later. So as we got to doing the show and they started making our uniforms and stuff, and I was like, I just don't think Evander fits this guy, Nitro, that's explosive, that's loud, that's cocky. And they're like, great idea. We own the trademark. Great idea. We're going to go own the trademark. But so that's how the name came about.
It's a great name. It really is. And American Gladiators, if you haven't watched it, I highly recommend you watch some of the old clips on YouTube, wherever you can find them. There's also a documentary coming out, Muscles and Mayhem, Unauthorized Story of American Gladiators, comes out June 28th on Netflix. It's got some behind-the-scenes stuff. It chronicles the rise and fall of American Gladiators. I'm beyond excited to watch that. Nitro is a perfect name that does fit in with everything you guys had going on, because it was kind of like WWE, or it was like professional wrestling meets the Olympics, meets just like dogfights, kind of. It was insane. It was such a great TV show. I can't stress that enough. And you were a legend. I remember you were good at the ring event, right? where you'd have to try to like use the Olympic like gymnastics rings to get past Nitro, and you couldn't get past Nitro on those rings.
Well, PFT, humbly, I like to think I was good at all the shit. You know what I mean? I was good at all the shit, and I think I was really good with bringing that attitude, that character, that I, that to the camera. I think that's why Nitro, if he is remembered, is why he's remembered. The first couple of seasons, it was all character, character. They wanted us to have these wrestling personas, but it didn't really fit with the fact that this show was balls to the wall, punch you in the face, real competition.
Yeah.
So they toned down on the characters a little bit after the disastrous first 13 episodes of Gladiators. If you go look, if you watch it on YouTube, it's a crack up. So they toned that down, but I always kept a little bit of that character. Like, I think I modeled it after I met it was some big agent. He said the key to being a star, a movie star in Hollywood, is you got to be the guy that the girls want to bang. That's probably not Peter. That's probably
No, you
not
can say that.
correct
Yeah,
now.
that's fine. Yeah.
You got to be the dude that the girls want to be intimate with. This
Yeah.
is the woke version, and also the gentleman will think you are cool to hang out with. So that was the key. So I wanted to be this guy that was, kind of brash, that maybe girls would like, but that dudes thought that dude's kind of cool. He'd want to hang out with. So I kept that character, and I think I remember I was just watching it for this docu-series Muscles and Mayhem on Netflix, and I had to watch a bunch of old clips, and one of my favorite lines was like, a little guy beat me, and I just was like, not bad for a little man. Just cheesy just cheesy stuff like that. But the docu-series over at Netflix, which comes out on June 20th, as you said, I am so excited about that. PFT and Billy. So it's based upon a book that I wrote 10 years ago called Gladiator, A True Story of Roid's Rage Redemption. And, it was just something where I wanted to tell my story. Not really the story of the American Gladiators, but I wanted to tell a story about a guy who felt like a nothing, who was, whose older brother died in his arms, who was lost in his life when he was 10 years old. And through sports and athletics, he finds a place to belong. And when that dream looks like it's gone because of an injury, my first year of JUCO, junior college football, I met this guy in the gym, and this guy was huge. So when I say when my dream was gone, with that injury, I saw any shot of getting a scholarship disappear. And I met this guy that was huge, and this was probably 82. And I just said, dude, you're big. Dude, you look amazing. And I said, what do you do? And he said, I take steroids. This was 1982. It's not like it is today. It wasn't in the zeitgeist. And I'm a 17-year-old kid. And I was like, what the hell are steroids? What is that? And, he says, look, they help you recuperate. They make you bigger. They make you stronger. And I said, that sounds too good to be true. I said, are they safe? And he said, yeah, I go to a doctor, so they have to be safe. And I said, sign me up. So I go to the doctor, like the next weekend, I go to see this doctor in one of the very first steroid doctors in America, Dr. Kerr, in San Gabriel Valley, California. And he says, you're not 18. I can't prescribe these for you. And I was like, so devastated. Again, this wasn't the time where, the bonds and Conseco, they weren't even illegal in the country. So I waited till my 18th birthday. And on my 18th birthday, my dad gave me $172 to go see this doctor. And I went and saw Dr. Kerr, and he said, okay, great. Here's how we're going to treat you. And he opened up this, like this cabinet. It had all these vials. And it was like, there was like this, moment, and I said, sign me up. And I remember it was so interesting at that time. I wasn't worried about the dangers of steroids. I was worried that they weren't going to work, and then I wouldn't have a chance at recuperating fast enough. So anyways, out of that book, I told this personal journey about a kid waiting to be seen, trying to overcome the loss of his older brother, his hero. And he goes to find fame and finally gets fame, which I did. We're pretty famous back at the day. And it was really strange, guys, because I don't know if you guys have experienced this, but I had everything I wanted. I was on billboards. I sold out Madison Square Garden.
Mhm.
There were plenty of opportunities with women, but I wasn't happy. I was waking up on the floor. I was, just high out of my mind on too many mornings, spit dribbling out of my face, out of my mouth, and I was just crying. Here I am, a star in this big show, and I'm waking up crying too many mornings. So that was the time, I had to, raise my hand as a big, strong man in the early 90s when it wasn't, the cool thing to do. And I just said, I need fucking help, man. I need help. And I started a therapy and getting that mental health. So the journey of that book is the basis for the docu-series. So I'm excited because it goes much deeper, not as deep as I want, than, hey, these guys ran around in spandex. Wasn't it cool? Did they
Mhm.
shave their legs? So it's a much deeper thing, but it's the director was two directors, Jared Hess from Napoleon Dynamite.
Yep.
Are you guys familiar with him?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Nacho Libre, the
Yep.
Shanghai
Yeah.
Nights, a fabulously, fabulously funny director. And we also got another guy who maybe he did a really great film. I don't know if you guys have seen this. It was a smaller film. It was called, his name is Tony Iannuku, and it was In Football We Trust. And it won an Emmy and it was about the Polynesian community in Utah. Did you see it?
I haven't seen
PFT?
it, but I know that this is a movie that Billy would absolutely love. That's why I'm
Yeah.
nodding. I'm just thinking about Billy's face watching it for the first time, and I'm excited already.
Yeah, in Football We Trust is about the Polynesian community and how in Utah and how football has become their way to a better life and the pressures it puts on it. It's a fabulous movie. So when we were out looking for directors, Jared was obviously on the list because he's freaking fantastic and he's funny and Gladiators has a sense of levity to it, even though it was a serious competition. And then when we were talking to Jared, he said, "Look, I got this other guy, Tony, I want to do this with." I think it would be a nice combination of Napoleon Dynamite funny with his touch at dramatic filmmaking. So it's really funny. It's good. The thing that threw me the most about it is when Jared Hess said, "We want to animate portions of it. We want to animate it." And I was like, "Animate?" And I said, "Look, here's a rule. You can laugh with the gladiators, and I'm okay with that, but you can never laugh at us."
Yeah.
Yeah, right? And then he shows me a frame and he said, "We want to do this 90s He-Man style, like, that whole thing." And so he shows me a frame of it, which tied into a funny story I had told to him that we tell in the documentary is where I went out with, there was a female gladiator named Zap, Ray Holland. She was like the first woman of muscle. I mean, she's like thick like a dude, but pretty like a girl. It's really confusing.
Mhm.
When you look at it, you're like, I don't know if I want to have sex with her, or I don't know if I want to wrestle her.
I think that's yeah. I was becoming a man at that point in my life, and I was very confused when I was watching it. I was like, this is all the emotions I'm getting right now.
So I tell him this funny story. I said, I remember when I went on we went on a promotional thing. It was one of our
Mhm.
first things, and Ray Holland Zapp had just come off of a big movie, Skin Deep, with John Ritter, where she has this funny scene where she starts posing like by his bedside, and he's under the covers, biting his nails. He's
Mhm.
scared, and she says, "I train 365 days a week, blah blah blah." And she says, "How do you feel?" And he's like shivering. He's like Mrs. Arnold Schwarzenegger. And it's a great thing. So to me, she was a movie star, and I was quite smitten. And so we went and did a promotional thing, and we had a couple of drinks, and we're going back to my little apartment. And she gets out of the car, and I get out of the car, and we're going to the house. And I said, "Hey," and I don't know why I asked this. I don't know if you guys ever do this. I say, "Hey, do you want a piggyback ride into the house?" Do you guys ever ask your
Smooth.
dates that?
That's smooth. Yeah, no, that's a smooth move right there.
Mm.
Yeah. What do you think, Billy? Do you ever ask? I don't even know what I was saying. I was 23 years old. Hey,
Well,
babe,
as,
you want a
as a
piggyback ride?
as a 24-year-old, I wouldn't say I haven't done that.
Well, you think about it. It's you break that physical touch barrier, right? Now
Yeah.
she's got her legs wrapped around you.
Yep.
Eh,
Her crotch
I'll-
is touching you. Not that, like you're
Yeah.
you're slowly breaking that wall down. Absolutely.
You can decide
Right.
the destination, both of you.
Right. So I'm 240 pounds. I'm huge pretty huge at that time and strong. So she wraps her legs around my waist. We're walking up the sidewalk, and she says to me, whispers in my ear, she says, do you want to see how strong I am? I'm like, yeah. So Ray starts to squeeze her legs. And the next thing I know, I feel like the life squeezing out of me. I
Mhm.
start to go black. I start to like pat, and I'm embarrassed. I'm like struggling, taking these steps forward. And eventually she squeezes so tight, she drops me to my knees. I'm on my
Mhm.
knees, like, and drop to my ground. And I mean, how would you guys react to
Uh, yeah, I need mouth to mouth, like stat.
Deep
That's
throat
what
out.
that's what you got to ask for. Uh, Zap was
so,
she was a piece of work. You are absolutely right. Go
so
Google Zap right now.
yeah, so oh, so she drops me to my knees, and I remember I got up and it just changed me, changed my whole identity as a man. And I just said, I got up and it scared me actually, and I just got up and I shook her hand and I said, we're going to be good friends, and that we were friends. We've been great friends ever since then. But the reason I bring up that long story was because Jared Hess knew that story. And he said, okay, when she squeezes your waist, you remember Arnold Schwarzenegger in Total Recall where his eyes bulged? Yeah.
Yeah,
Do you guys remember
on
that?
Mars. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. So that's the clip he showed me of the animation
Hmm.
where she's squeezing my waist and my eyes are bulging out. And I was like, oh, dude, that's funny. That's genius. So the docu-series will have funny moments like that, as well as all the other stuff that you guys will love. I think the best compliment we got from a reviewer, because it's nobody's really seen it, and he said, "You know what? I love the show growing up, but after watching the docu series, he goes, I love it even more."
Yeah.
So we knew we did something great. So I can't wait for you guys to see it.
I
It's
know. I'm pumped. I've been just watching clips because it was a little before my time. As I said, I'm 24, so like I saw some of the reboots growing up, but I've just been watching tons of clips of the original, and I'm so pumped to watch this
But
series
you're,
that's
you're
coming
only
up next Friday.
24. You're only 24.
Only 24.
You talk like a man, though.
he
I
talks like a
appreciate that.
man.
Yeah, you sound like a man. You look like a man. I didn't know you were just like a wee sprout young guy.
Hey,
No, I mean this is really Billy. Billy would have been a great American Gladiator. I think he would have been like the Malibu type. Like bro. He would just bro you out.
need a little
Uh,
more juice.
a little more juice. Billy has dabbled in how would you put it, Billy? Like body
No.
modification,
Biohacking.
biohacking. So I'm sure he's got a bunch of questions for you about the various biohacking that you've done in your past when you were at your largest. So Billy, I'll let you take the floor and any science related questions. Go for it.
yeah, I still biohack. So there
Yeah.
you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so this is AMA with
Yeah.
Dan Nitro Clark and Billy. Ask me
Well,
anything,
Billy
Billy.
respects people with large body mass. He just respects big, strong people. So I'm sure he's got a million questions for you on that front.
Well, it's the whole aspect of discipline. It takes a lot of work to get to that point. I was just wondering, Arnold Schwarzenegger recently revealed his cycle when he was really at the peak of his powerlifting days, bodybuilding, and he said he was only doing 100 milligrams of testosterone a week and then 15 milligrams a day of Dianabol. So comparatively to like what a lot of guys are running today, that's pretty minimal. Do you believe that? Like what was guys back then using? And I'm not saying but do you think that is a realistic cycle he said he was doing?
Oh boy. So I know that Kerr started me on 200 milligrams of testosterone cypionate a week when I was 18 years old. And he started me on two Dianabol.
Hmm.
And he said, look, when you stop getting the benefits from this, you're not getting that explosive growth that you want. He said, come back and see me again. So now, young guy, 18, I wanted explosive growth. And my buddy at the gym, who was huge, was kind of my, steroid mentor. And he just said, hey, after 6 weeks, just go back to him and tell him you're not getting gains. So I went back to him about 6 weeks later, and then he upped it to 4 Dianabol a day. I can't remember how many milligrams, maybe 5 milligrams. This was 25, 30 years ago. And I got really consistent gains. And then about 3 months into it, my buddy nudged me again and said, "Hey, look, go ask him for something else. I'm taking Anadrol. I think it was called Anadrol 50, another oral, and it's stronger than Dianabol." So I went back and I asked him for that. So I think it might have been a starting dose for him. Again, it's hard for me to speak for him, but I don't think, being his size, that's all he could have taken. Maybe that was his intro dose. I do have friends that compete now in bodybuilding. These guys are just monsters compared to Arnold. I mean, I think they look shitty. Pardon me. I think that I don't like the aesthetic.
Yeah, you
They're
like
just
the
too
classic
big.
physique.
Like
Frank
natural.
Zane.
Like
Yeah.
if you're watching American Gladiators and you're a kid, you could be like, these are like superheroes. They're just like guys that have superpowers. But if you watch some like the bodybuilders now, you're just like absolute freaks.
Yeah, look, there's no. I commend them for all the work you got to do. I think the misnomer that everyone, and there's this myth that if you take the bean, that all of a sudden you just get huge. I take more, you get, no, you don't. You got to work. What does it do? Right? It gives you more testosterone, number one, aggression, but two, it allows your body to recover more quickly. Right? So all that damn work you put in, you get more and more results, but that also increases your ability to do a bigger workload, which I think why you see a lot of the huge guys like Ronnie Coleman, like rest in peace. We had a gladiator named Billy Smith Thunder who just passed away. These guys, muscles grow so fast that their joints and their ligaments and their tendons can't keep up with it. And then as they get older, you see them, they're almost disabled, and you won't say the cause of their death is steroid, but you will say that I think it had something to do with their condition now because they put too much stress too quickly on the body. And I think the other funny thing now is, I know so many guys who do TRT, testosterone replacement therapy. Are you on roids? Nah, man, I'm on TRT. and I'm like, well, how much testosterone you taking? 200 milligrams a week. That's what the doctor prescribed. So they're taking as much as I was back when I played football, back when I did Gladiator. So it's just funny.
And when you get TRT, you have to get it done like repeatedly, right? You can't just take one dose of it. At least that's what Billy was telling me. And again, Billy's not a doctor, so I'm just kind of fact checking everything he said. But according to him, if you get it done once, it's kind of something that you kind of sign up for maybe the rest of your life.
Yes and no. It depends what your goals are, right? I think at a certain age in your health cycle, that your testosterone stops producing as much as it used to. You don't produce as much testosterone. Then if you want to supplement that testosterone to get you back into that optimal range, so a guy who's in his 50s like me has the same thing as Big Billy there, then I will go and supplement with that. What happens is what you're talking about, PFT, is that your body stops producing testosterone when you put testosterone into your body, right? So then you have to continue to take it unless you want to go off your cycle, right? And then when you go off your cycle, you're at a testosterone deficit because your body produces so much. And then you have to take post cycle therapy that stimulates your body to produce testosterone naturally to get you back to that level. That's why you should, I think, minimal effective dosage for prolonged periods of time. When you're younger, go off, go back on, go back off on. If that's what you can do. As you get older, for me, it's just a weekly shot of anywhere between 70 milligrams and 100 milligrams of test. I don't want to look like a guy who's on roids. I just want to have that. And I get my blood work every 3 months. I want to look like I work out and I train. And I think that helps me do that because I'm at the same level. Hopefully you are.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. I'm curious to know what it was like backstage, like the relationships that you had with the other gladiators at the time. If anything's in the late 80s, I always assume that there's cocaine going around. I always assume that there's partying.
90s, brother. I'm not that old. I'm not your grandfather.
I thought you guys got started in the late 80s. Maybe I was wrong on my dates.
Yeah. 89. I think the first year was 89 to 97.
Yeah. Okay. So in that time period, you guys were stars. I mean, American Gladiators was a mainstay on television. I imagine that there were some egos. There were certainly some steroids. Did you guys all get along as a unit, or was there beef between the gladiators that created drama backstage and made things kind of more than what we saw on television between you all?
Yeah, what you guys saw, Billy, right? And it was just, these people competing, and spandex and going for it. And you saw the dreams of people who still competitors, contenders, the dreams of people who still had that dream of being an athlete and were looking for a way to showcase their skills, compete against us. Behind the scenes, and I speak for myself, being a 23-year-old guy, getting to Hollywood. When I first moved to Hollywood, my roommate at that time was Jim Starr, Jim Califat Laser, a stud from Montana State football, still holds the records for the most tackles in the season for them, was a linebacker. We played a strike ball for the Rams together. That's where I met him. And we became fastest and best of friends and roommates. And, it was two guys like us in Hollywood in the 90s. And I remember when we first got up there to Hollywood, there was this famous club. I can't even remember the name of it, was so long ago, but it was downtown Hollywood. I think Prince owned it. And it was one of those clubs where they had a cool guy in the sunglasses with a clipboard.
Mm-hmm.
You're right. You can't get in, And I remember us, these big guys walking up there. We want to get in. Are you on the list? No, not on the list. Okay, hold on. And about an hour later, dude, we're still not in, and are you on the list? We just said no, but you just let those models in, those girls, and let us in. I remember we were ready. We were like, we're going to kick your fucking asses. We're like, we're going to beat up the bouncers. Like, we were like ready to throw with those guys. Like, we'll kick you out. Let us in. This isn't fair. You can't treat people that way.
Yep.
And it went from that to getting in the back door of the Roxbury. You're going to have to look up the Roxbury, Billy, because you probably only know it as a movie. There's a movie for Saturday Night Live called The Roxbury. But, the back door is where Stallone got in. It's where Denzel got in. It's where, anybody who was famous got in. So it really, really shifted from a guy looking at the world to having the world look at you. And you guys, I don't know if you guys have that now for you guys, right? Where all of a sudden, like, oh, hey, dude, you're so cool. You're so cool. Oh, dude, can I get my picture with you? And it's a weird thing, right? Because you're like, I'm just a podcaster, bro.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of strange. I always say that there's nothing in human evolution until the last maybe 100 years that would prepare your brain for having maybe millions of people know who you are and have opinions on you and that sort of thing. That just didn't exist until mass media, until electricity came out, really. So maybe Shakespeare, maybe a million people knew who Shakespeare was when he was writing plays, but it was like a very rare occurrence in human history for that to happen. And you almost have to have you mentioned mental health. It's good to talk to somebody as you're going through that, because your brain's not really ready for it. And you don't want to wait until it's too late and you've developed all this head trash around, oh shit, everybody's looking at me, that sort of thing. Our biggest problem is people now are buying us shots of Malort. I just moved to Chicago and I made the mistake of putting one of those on camera and doing a Malort review. And so now I have a rule: no more shots of Malort. Can't do any more Malort. I'm sorry. I value my health too much. But yeah, Billy gets that a lot. Billy gets dudes that just come up to him and want to wrestle.
Yeah. Yes. So, talking about that whole phenomenon stuff, like the man in the arena, the gladiator in the arena, you guys were probably some of the first competitors on TV. The personalities were displayed. People sort of felt like they knew you and they saw you competing. You had to deal with loss and winning at a national scale at a very young age. How did you deal with that? Because I recently lost a physical type competition, and I'm not good with losing. Just every competitor, like if you become a great competitor, part of that is hating to lose more than liking to win. And how did you deal with when you lost and people coming up to you and being famous?
Well, I got to say, you hit the nail on the head. Is you don't like losing, and that's what makes people a winner, right? I mean, that's just something we have to get ingrained into our head, because I think right now we're in a society where everyone gets a trophy, first or last. You know what I mean? Like, hey, let's give everybody a trophy. And I think trophies and accolades should be held for the winners. Because when I was a younger guy and I wasn't starting in high school in football, I remember I looked at that guy who was ahead of me and said, God, one day I'm going to be like him. It gave me something to aspire for, something to shoot for. If they would have given me a trophy and I said, hey, you're MVP too, I'd have been like, hey, what do I need to work for? There wouldn't have been that hunger. So I commend you on that. And the second thing, Billy, I'm not going to be surprised if people aren't going to start sending you vials of testosterone.
Yeah.
You would love that.
Now you mentioned all of a sudden you get these little vials coming in there. You don't know what they are, and you're gonna grow a second penis. It's gonna be weird.
Quick disclaimer: don't try steroids; they're dangerous. I know.
So here's my thoughts on that. I have the whole book Gladiator, and at that time, the publishers were pressing me a little bit more to say how dangerous steroids are. I think for younger people, they can be dangerous because your body hasn't completely developed. The bones haven't completely developed. I don't think even drugs, I think are more dangerous. You can't drink till you're 21. I think if you're going to get into anabolics, I think you should wait. And I think now, because there's testing protocols in place, it's cheating. I mean, it's cheating. It's not even maybe the playing field is a little more even, but what we can see with guys still getting busted with Lance Armstrong 10 years ago, that maybe it's not. So I wouldn't say use steroids, but I think if you're a grown man and you want to keep a certain physique and your testosterone levels are low, then go to your doctor and get your levels tested, and they will supplement it if you're on the lower level, if that makes sense. Back to, winning and losing. I hated to lose, and I see it in my stepson now. He's 12 years old. He's the kid, when he was 8, he was playing soccer. If he lost a play match, he'd go behind the tree and cry, So the one thing I never worry about him, and I teach him how to deal with it now. I use Michael Jordan and Kobe a lot. You just smile, you take it in, and in your mind, you're out there saying, good match, but in your mind, you're just thinking, I'm going to kill you, man. I'm going to get you next time. To have that outward face while you still have that inner animal going on inside. So, for me, I hated to lose. I still hate to lose. Even when I started doing CrossFit, I hated to lose. Even now, I'm a pickleball guy, because I don't know if you can see my shirt.
Yeah,
I have a dinking problem. I have a dinking problem instead of a drinking problem. And I want to win. I'm competitive, but I think you can process it as you get older. And like you, Billy, it was funny because being a gladiator, you go into bars and guys, I can beat you. And it's like, dude, go sign up for the show. It's a TV show. I'm just here to have a drink. You know what I mean? What do you do, Billy? Do you throw some guys down or what?
No. There's too many cell phones nowadays. Everyone's just, get in trouble. But that's very funny because, you were a young guy when this was all happening. And now, there's more examples of people there's more famous people now, which is interesting.
Well, what you're saying, I think, is the barrier to becoming famous is a lot lower now. Before, you had to go through the studio system, right? PFT, you had to get a TV show, a movie. You had to get a bunch of yeses before you could be on TV. You had to try out for the Gladiators. You had to work out. The show had to be successful. You had to get a movie deal. Now you just have your camera. And if you're good at using that, and your voice, through the written word, if you're good at blogging, you can get incredible fame. Look at the Jake Paul.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, look at the Kardashians, love him or hate him. How did they get famous? With the camera and a sex scene. Right. And people bash them, but they took that thing, which has happened to plenty of people, not me, but it's happened to plenty of people. And they parlayed that into $1 billion empire. So you have to, whether you like this idea that everybody is chasing fame or not, you can see that they and a few other people have done really well at monetizing it, But I think what's hard is, like we talked about earlier, that what happens when you realize the emptiness of obtaining a false dream? You know what I mean? Like, you get everything you want, And I know most people listening right now, just let me get some of that, then I'll be happy. But there's really comes a moment when you get everything you want, and it doesn't fulfill you in the way that you think. Like, what do you guys want? What would be your pinnacle? What would be your dream?
Well, I mean, what
Are
you're
you
describing right now is a Britney Spears song. She's so lucky she's a star, but she cries, cries, cries in her lonely heart, or whatever that is.
Is she a singer? Britney Spears? Who's that?
Yeah, she's a
I'm
snake
joking.
handler.
I'm joking. I'm joking.
She's a flight attendant who's a snake handler.
I'm not quite that old.
No, I mean, like there's some truth to it. No matter how big you get in any field, you're still a human being, and you still have fulfillment issues. If you're doing something and it's not exactly what you want to be doing, yeah, you deal with the same things as everybody else: loss, desire.
Well, what's your dream,
pride.
PFT? Are you living the dream? Like, if you could say, "This is my dream. This is all my wishes will be fulfilled."
I am living the dream. I think that I have the best job in the entire world, and I'm exceptionally happy with it. I don't know what else I would want out of my career than what I have. I think I'd like to be able to do more writing, because that was my first love, was just doing writing and not so much podcasting and video work. But I love those things too. I would like to have more time to be able to write, but I can make time for that. Really, the only thing that I need or want right now is an El Camino. I think if I get an El Camino, then I've got it made, baby. I've got it made. I got a house now. I'm out in Chicago. I'm living the real life. I'm not trapped up in a shoebox apartment in New York anymore. If you add an El Camino into this mix, then there's no turning back for me. I'm on the highway to hell, and I'm loving every second of it. So give me an El Camino with a bitchin' sound system, and I don't think I'll ever complain about anything else in my life.
What about you? What about you, Billy? That's funny.
The thing is, I still live in a small apartment. Like, I'm young. I'm doing, like, I like to think I'm on a good track. So right now it's more for me. I'm just kind of still growing up in certain ways and just trying to, like, be an adult, but I still feel like I'm, 17, and it's a little bit, we are very, we're well recognized in our circle, but that doesn't really correlate. Like, I'm not I can't, I got a truck, which is great. I love, but like, I'm not really like balling, like a lot of people.
Let me ask you this. So why does he have a house and you don't? Is there a pay discrepancy? Does he?
No, we don't need to talk about that. Yeah, we don't need to talk about it. Moving on. One last. Thank you for joining us, Nitro. It was fantastic having you on the show today.
Well, there's also he's in a truck and you're like in a mansion.
No, there's a very large talent discrepancy too, which I would more than well say is definitely true, and also time spent in the what's the word I'm looking for?
Field.
In the field.
In the profession
of
being a shithead with a microphone.
Yeah.
I got a few years. I got a few years experience saying dumb shit online.
I've only said a couple. Yeah.
PFT, that's true. The Gladiators, hey, look, experience. Football, your experience, right? Basketball, your experience, and you're paid, on the scale versus your experiences, right? Yeah. LeBron's getting $100 million a year, and the time comes and he's getting $1 million. Totally get it. But what's with the El Camino?
It's been a car that I've wanted ever since I was a kid, and I don't know why. It's it's kind of an ugly truck car combination. It just rocks. I don't know how else to describe it. It's just been something that I've always wanted. I'm kind of like that. Like, when I was growing up, there were certain things that I always wanted that for whatever reason I couldn't get, whether it was a certain type of basketball shoe. My parents were like, "Oh, I'm not going to spend $140 on a shoe," which I understand now in retrospect, but things that you want growing up. And then once you get to the point where you can afford them, it's like, let's just get all the stuff that I really wanted when I was a kid that I couldn't have. And I wanted an El Camino for my first car. It's probably not that safe of a car to drive for your first auto. My parents probably wanted something more along the lines of a minivan, more practical for me. But the El Camino,
that's funny. That's a creeper van, right?
Yeah. I put spinners on there. Yeah, it was. I tricked it out a little bit. I've always kind of given off El Camino energy, but I just didn't have the car to truly round it out.
You had the van that would probably scare mothers when you're pulling up to take them on a date. He's got a van. Don't go on the date with PFT. There's a van. Don't go into the van.
That's why I didn't get laid in high school. Yeah, it's because of the van. You're right. Now looking back on it, was nothing else. But the El Camino, it's on my dream board. You know, you have to have things and goals that you aspire to. I'm a pretty reasonable guy. My loftiest hope and dream in life is just to buy an El Camino. And I think this conversation has solidified it, me saying it out loud and verbalizing it. I think, fuck it, I'm just going to get an El Camino. It's going to happen. I'm going to get an El Camino. I'll treat myself.
You should. It was funny is because in college, I had a CJ7 red Jeep. And that was the best times, man. I would take that Jeep to the beach. We would drive across the border to Mexico. Me and my buddy Greg Early have some Coronas in the back. He had a black one. And that's when you could actually drive on the beach. We would, bring a couple like our girlfriends with us, would camp out on the beach. And it was just that time. And I eventually sold that car, years and years ago. But just recently, I've been looking online at getting a new one. Yeah. But, the same model. But the weird thing is, I think I must have paid $22,000 for it brand new back in 86 or 87. I look now, the used ones are like $38,000, yep. $40,000. So I'm going to try to manifest that like you. CJ7, please. I deserve it. CJ7, someone send me one, please. Give me a red CJ7 Jeep with the top off with a great sound system, and then I'm a complete guy.
You do deserve it. I appreciate you joining us. I thank you for your time, and make sure to go watch Muscles and Mayhem on Netflix. It comes out June 28th. It's the unauthorized story of American Gladiators. Before we let you go, I do want you to tell us about the time that you knocked a guy out when you was that during the audition process or before you started taping the show?
That was, oh man. So the last audition, and so I'll set this up. I had packed my car and I was heading out of LA because I was broke. I couldn't pay my rent. I had packed up my Jeep, my CJ7 Jeep, and I was heading down the freeway. And then I get at my pager. Yes, there was such a thing as a pager. It beeps on my thing. I pull over. I call my agent, and he says, "You got a call back for this thing." And I said, "Dude, I'm done." And he says, "Look, I think it's for real. That this." They didn't even have a name for it. It's at the Universal Studios lot. I'm like, oh, it's on the lot. I'd never been on the lot, of Universal Studios. So I turned my car around, packed to the hilt with everything. I go and I try to get in the gate because my name's there. He's like, you can't park that piece of shit filled with stuff on the lot. Go park down there. And I'm like, oh my God. So I run on the lot. I run in there and I go in there. And to try out the games, they brought these kids in from Northridge, Cal State Northridge. And they told these guys that they were testing out a new game show. And I think in their mind, since something like American Gladiator has never been on, they're thinking Wheel of Fortune, Jeopardy, the dating game. And they give these kids $40 a day, a brown bag of lunch, and they made them go through these drills with us. We're down to the final one, and they're picking people to stay. And they point at me and says, go and do this game. And it was what became Breakthrough and Conquers, where the guy carries a football and he has to run 15 yards past you on a 10-yard wide field. And then they didn't have the field. They just took chalk. They were taking chalk and drawing chalk lines on the concrete floor inside of a sound stage. So they give it to this guy. He must have been 155 pounds soaking wet.
This seems like a bad football drill, by the way. I just want to say, I'm thinking through the dynamics and how you're describing the setup of it. I don't know any way that this drill just doesn't end in severe injury for the ball carrier.
This is just Oklahoma drills in a hallway.
That's what it was. So they gave this guy the football and they put him 15 yards across from me. They had chalk lines drawn on the floor, and they tell this guy, no gear, just a football. And they tell this guy, I said, hey, run past him. I'm 240. I just got cut from the Rams. And again, this is not just this event. This is my Hollywood dream. I'm trying to keep it alive. And so this guy runs at me, and I could see he was scared, but like, oh, he's not going to really hit me hard. And I got down like in full LT, like, linebacker mode, I think I probably got down to a 3-point stance, and they blew the whistle. And this guy comes running at me, and I'm running at him. I was, even at 240, I ran a 4.640. I was pretty fast. Wow. So I run at him, and then I just like hit him. Whoa! We both go flying in the air. He lands on his back with me on top of him. His head, back, hits the concrete. The ball spills out. and the guy's out cold.
Oh, Jesus.
And I'm standing over this guy going, oh shit, man, my aggression, I'm not going to get this job. And the next thing I hear, someone yell, call the paramedics. And I'm like, oh my God. And so then I'm standing over there, by myself, and one of the producers, hey, you come over here. And he said, I said, yeah, dude, I'm sorry, sir. I just kind of lost it. And he looks at me, he says, I want you to keep losing it. I said, what? And he said, you got the job, kid. And that's how I got on American Gladiator. So, I want to thank you guys so much, man, for having me on. I've been listening to your show. I'm a big fan. And I really think people will love the docuseries. It's not one of those, VH1, oh my God, I'm so sad. Oh, look what happened to our lives. It's a glorious, nostalgic romp into the 90s. For you guys who are playing it in your backyard with your brothers, or you watched it with your grandpa, it's going to bring you right back to that time and put you there, with the music, Busta Rhymes. And it's also, fun, but there is some tragedy. But at the end, it's also triumphant. And again, I hope everyone who watches it is going to say, like that reviewer did, I used to love the show, but now after watching the docuseries, I love it more.
Very cool.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks, man. I appreciate your time. And yes, it was a fantastic piece of television. I'm very much looking forward to watching the documentary behind the scenes and get to know a little bit more about what you guys went through at the time. But thank you for coming on. And again, you can watch the documentary Muscles, Mayhem, an unauthorized story of American Gladiators, premiering June 28th. It's on Netflix. You have Netflix. Just watch the fucking show. It's going to be great. I'm putting the PFT stamp of approval on it. Watch the show so that you can love American Gladiators as much as I love American Gladiators. All right, Dan Nitro Clark. Nitro, thank you for joining us, man. Appreciate it.
Peace out, boys.